These days, there are a lot of skyscrapers in Hamilton. There's about 25 right now, with several more being built as we film. Year by year, Hamilton gets taller and taller as the value of land and the population of downtown increase. Over the past century, tall buildings of all shapes and sizes have been erected to stand out prominently on the skyline. So it may surprise you to find that most believe the most beautiful skyscraper in this city was the first one ever built. This one? No. This one? Closer, but no. This one? What is that, a joke? No, this is what we're looking for. Built in 1929, Hamilton's first skyscraper, the Pigott Building. It's the namesake of famous Canadian Joseph Pigott, whose company has gone on to create legendary Southern Ontario structures, such as the Cathedral Basilica, McMaster University, Skyway Bridge, the Royal Ontario Museum, and many of these other iconic structures, despite having the silly name Joseph Pigott.
Not only is this the first building in Hamilton over 200 feet, but it's also the Pigott Construction Company's first major project.
Built on the property of Pigott's old headquarters in 1929, nearly a century later it still stands out on the skyline, being built in the unique and very sexy Art Deco Gothic Revival style. It even used to have a spinning light on top of it there, like the Eiffel Tower. Gotta bring that back. It looks very similar to the Tribune Tower in Chicago, built 5 years prior, but the Pigott Building is half the height of that building and only cost 8% of the budget to build. You can probably see why the Pigott Construction Company was so popular in Southern Ontario. Lavish builds at low costs.
And their structures were built sturdy too. Not only is their first skyscraper ever still standing, but so are many of their other projects. That's including this mile-long bridge that's run over by 150,000 vehicles all day, every day, and was built 65 years ago for only $12 million.
You just don't get deals like that these days. For comparison, the new Gordie Howe Bridge in Windsor being built over the Detroit River will cost over $6 billion, with a B. Even adjusted for inflation, that's the cost of 40 Skyway bridges.
40 Skyway bridges?
The longevity of the Pigott Construction Company's architecture is outstanding, allowing for places like the Pigott Building to fill the city with a century of stories. It'd be a shame if I didn't tell you those stories, so guess what? I'm going to tell you those stories. The Pigott Building acted as office space throughout its life, and a rather successful space at that. From her grand opening onward, the tall tower saw nothing but tenants and workers and dough rolling in. But then the 70s happened. Crime was rising in downtown, and the area became extremely unpopular. The building was sold off, and the future of the tower was put into question. As it was sold off again and again, it continued to pass through hands. Abandoned. Alone. Piggy. But then,
in 1984, the Pigott Building was designated as a landmark of historical and cultural significance by the Ontario Heritage Act, meaning it could not be torn down and had to be maintained.
But at this point, the building was in significant disrepair. The stained glass, brass doors, and other artifacts from the building had been stolen after the tower had been abandoned for years. But, and this is crazy if this is true, the windows were found at a local antique shop, purchased for $12,000, and reinstalled. What? They purchased the stolen windows. Why would you buy them if Okay, you know what? This is Hamilton in the 80s. I'm not gonna question it. Pigott was later bought by Sun Life, and the building was fully restored. Can you guess what they turned it into? Yeah, that's right. Big surprise, they turned it into condos. More recently, in 2021, a plaque marking the spot where the Women's Canadian Club movement began on the property was stolen, keeping the old Hamilton tradition of stealing from the Pigott Building alive and well. The plaque was known not for the event it commemorates, but for its plethora of spelling mistakes.
This building was the first in a long line of legendary, long-lasting, lucrative landmarks made by the Pigott Construction Company. And their architectural influence on not just Hamilton, but all of Ontario cannot be understated.
There's also a ghost in the building. Willie Thompson was the elevator operator for many years who lived in the basement of the Pigott Building. He lived where he worked and was known for shouting, "All aboard!" and making train sounds with his mouth as the elevator started moving. Willie himself thought the building was haunted, stating he'd sometimes hear the voices of deceased former residents while he was operating the elevator alone. Despite its haunting nature, he loved living in the building and loved his job, so much so that he vowed to stay in the building forever, even after his death. Today, We're 11 years past his passing, and many condo residents claim to hear voices in the elevator shaft. Some have even told reporters they've seen him walking through the hallways, and they say Willie is still looking over the Pigott Building to this day, protecting the elevator. Many of Hamilton's historic downtown buildings have been demolished over the years for condos or shopping malls or parking lots. There's been a huge revolt in recent years to tearing down old properties and removing the history of this city. So with the Ontario Heritage Act keeping many historic buildings safe from destruction and Willie Thompson safeguarding the structure, the Pigott Building will likely be with us for centuries to come.
Is the ghost gone yet?